Marry me, people of the internet. My name is Rosie Moon Thursday, and in today's episode of Mystical Unknown, I would like to share the story of the god and goddess, and information about some of the more popular gods and goddesses from the various pantheons you can follow. Without further ado, let's get to it. First things first, I have a couple disclaimers to go over. One, I am just one Wiccan among many. One of the fantastic parts of this religion is that no one Wiccan's path is the same. All the information in this video is knowledge I've acquired during my path this year. If I get something wrong, feel free to leave a comment down below. Any negative or bullying comments will be deleted. 2, I choose to practice this religion, but I also have respect for your religion, whatever that may be. I don't believe that my religion is the only path, and you will suffer if you do not convert. You do you, and you practice your own religion, and I will practice mine. 3, this video is purely for education. I am not here to recruit anyone to the Wiccan faith, but merely here to help anyone who is just getting started in Wicca, or who is interested in this path. So, you found out about this cool religion, and it calls to you. It feels like you finally found your place in the world, and that your soul has finally come home. So what's the first step you need to take? Why, of course, learning about the god and goddess that you're preparing to worship. So, who are the god and goddess? Well, that is a bit of a complicated question. There is a lot of misconceptions and confusion on this subject, and I think it has to do with the fact that Wicca doesn't have their own specific deity. There is the moon goddess and the sun god, but they aren't specifically named. Wiccans worship ancient gods and goddesses from different pantheons, usually chosen by A, that Wiccan's specific heritage, i.e., if you are Irish, you would follow the Irish pantheon, or B, that Wiccan's training or coven they are a part of, i.e. if you're a Garnerian Wiccan, you would worship the moon and sun goddess/god, or C, all of them, or whoever you want to worship. Now, there are 4 distinct beliefs that I have learned of so far. The first belief is that the god and goddess are personified beings of nature's characteristics. For instance, the moon is the symbol of the goddess and the sun is the symbol of the god. So they are the personified versions of the moon and the sun. An example I can give you of this is the god Eos. She is the goddess of the dawn, therefore Eos is the dawn, and when you witness dawn breaking, you are witnessing her. If you pop over to Harmony Nice's channel after this video, she gives a really good explanation of this and goes more into depth about it. I'll link the video down below. Personally, I believe in this as well. In the first book I read on Wicca, the god and goddess were characterized as being actual beings of the higher than human variety. And the book offered an activity in which it suggested that the reader should write down what the goddess and god looked like to them. When I sat down to do this activity, I described more feelings I had of when I felt the god and goddess. I thought and felt like maybe I was wrong, and that in time after more studying, I would come to the point where I would see them as the beings this book described them to be. A misconception that I had early on in my path, which is one of the reasons for this channel. Just because one Wiccan sees them as beings doesn't mean you are wrong if you feel them and have a different perception of them. Nor is it bad if you see them as beings rather than just feelings. Anyway, the second belief goes that, that's right, you guessed it, the god and goddess are actual beings in a higher plane than our own. The third belief is that they are just ancient peoples whose spirits were more distinct than others. They are still walking this earth, and helping those like you and me walk our path. Hence why you might see them called Ancient Ones, like if you read any of Scott Cunningham's Wicca books. The fourth and last belief is the moon goddess and the sun god are the all, or the king and queen of all the deities out there. Then any god or goddess from other pantheons are somewhat of lesser deities that you can honor, and call upon for their aid. Something you will see quite commonly through your Wiccan path is something called the triple goddess. This is the symbolization of the goddess's growth. It follows the moon phases each month. The new moon starts off the moon's rotation and symbolizes the maiden aspect of the goddess. Then we move into the full moon, and this symbolizes the mother aspect of the goddess. Lastly, we move into the last quarter, or some Wiccans believe the crone aspect starts when the moon goes into the waning period, 3 days after the full moon, and this symbolizes the crone aspect of the goddess before we reset at the new moon. The god, on the other hand, does not have a triple symbol like the goddess, though I have seen Wiccans who have created a triple god symbol. I have a theory this is because the sun doesn't change like the moon does monthly. Also, we celebrate the gods' changes throughout the year, whereas the goddess is celebrated monthly. Maybe this knowledge as to why this is lost to the ancient cultures that no longer roam the earth. I also have noticed that a lot of the time the goddess is more emphasized than the god, which makes sense since she is the one that gives life to the god. However, it's best to remember that life can't be had without the god. Everything is about balance. We can't have one without the other. I also feel like that is why Wicca is mistaken for a female-only religion. Next, let's talk about the god and goddess's story. It starts at the Wiccan New Year, Samhain, when the god dies. That's why we have the cold months. The goddess goes into mourning for her lost love, and the sun's power, or the god's power, is on the wane. Then we go into Yule, when the goddess gives birth to the new god. Imbolc leads into the god growing up, and the goddess rests from giving birth. Next, we see the god fully grown, and he falls in love with the goddess. He impregnates her with the next god. His power begins to wane, and we reach Samhain again. This is a shortened version of the story. I promise to do the Wiccan Sabbats videos and go more in depth. One of the most common pantheons you can choose to follow is the Greek gods and goddesses. Ronnon was kind enough to pick some of his favorites from this pantheon for me to share some information with you about. First up is Demeter. She is the goddess of the earth and harvest. She is known for gifting humanity with corn and agriculture. She is one of the goddesses known as Mother Earth, much like Gaia. One of her symbols is a cornucopia. Next we have Hera. Hera is the wife of Zeus, and as such, she is seen as the queen of all gods and goddesses. She is the goddess of marriage, mothers, and children. One of her funny little quirks is that she does not like those unfaithful to their spouses. I wouldn't recommend working with her after you have gotten done cheating on your spouse. On the flip side of that, if you have a cheating spouse, then she would be someone good to work with. One of her symbols is a cow. Moving on, we have Apollo. Apollo is the brother of Artemis and one of the archer gods. He is the god of the sun and of poems. He is seen every day as riding his chariot of flames across the sky, which we perceive as the sun. One of his symbols is a bow and arrow. Nike is the next goddess on our list. She is the goddess of strength, speed, and victory. She is used as a symbol for the Olympic sports that take place every 4 years. The famous shoe company is named after her as well. One of her symbols is the laurel wreath. Hephaestus is the god of blacksmiths and fire. He is also seen as a god over craftsmen and basically anyone who has a craft. He is seen mostly as a disregarded god, even though the things he created were the most beautiful out of all the Greek gods. He may be grumpy and hard to work with. One of his symbols is the anvil and hammer. Athena is the third to last on our list. She is the goddess of wisdom and war. She is also associated with spinning and weaving. She is also a maiden goddess, meaning that she is a virgin. One of her symbols is an owl. Hecate is the goddess of crossroads and of magic. She is generally seen as a darker aspect of the triple goddess. One of her symbols is Hecate's wheel. Last but not least, to finish off the Greek pantheon, we have Dionysus. Now, Dionysus is kind of a fun god, which is why I chose to include him. He is the god of wine, ritual madness, and religious ecstasy. One of his symbols is a grapevine. The Celtic pantheon is a bit of an umbrella term. A lot of the time, the first thing that comes to mind is it is an Irish-specific pantheon. However, it includes, but not limited to, Gaulish, Welsh, Gaelic, Picts, and German. Starting off, we have Ceridwen, and she is the goddess of wisdom. She has a cauldron of knowledge and inspiration in the underworld. She also has the powers of prophecy. She is seen as the crone aspect of the goddess. One of her symbols is the cult. Second, we have Brigid. She is the goddess of smithcraft, healing, fertility, and poetry. She is seen in all three aspects of the triple goddess. She is also a sun goddess, which is the opposite of the Wiccan faith of the goddess being the moon. I'm not 100% how that works, but again, this religion is open to a lot of interpretation. One of her symbols is fire. Third is the goddess Epona. She is the goddess of horses and fertility. Her symbol is a cornucopia as well as a horse. Fourth, we have Lugh. He is the god of skills. He has his own Sabbat, which is in August. One of his symbols is a spear. The Morrigan is the last of our Celtic pantheon gods. She is the goddess of war and fate. One of her symbols is a crow. Now let's talk about the Norse pantheon. Just a side note on these guys, you should give this video a big fat like because it was hard to find pictures of these gods that weren't from the Marvel. Ronnon refused to use pictures of Chris Hemsworth or Tom Hiddleston, even though I thought it would be cool for a pop culture reference. I think he might be jealous of those dudes. Odin is the All-Father. He is the god of wisdom, healing, death, royalty, the gallows, knowledge, war, battle, victory, sorcery, poetry, frenzy, and the runic alphabet. Whew! He is the husband to the goddess Frigg. One of his symbols is a volcano. Thor is the god of thunder, lightning storms, oak trees, strength, the protection of mankind, and also hallowing and fertility. He is the son of Odin and Frigg. One of his symbols is the hammer. Now, Loki is a bit of a mystery. You will often hear him called the god of mischief. He is a shapeshifter, and he defies many rules of the universe. He is symbolized as the Fool in tarot. Baldur is the god of light, joy, purity, and the summer sun. He is also a son of Odin and brother to Thor. One of his symbols is a boat. Last but not least, we have the Egyptian gods. The Egyptian gods are very interesting to me along with their culture. Quite a few of their gods were half animal and half human. Without further ado, here are a few of them. Another miss on pop culture references here for all you Stargate SG-1 fans out there. First, we have Anubis. He is the god of the afterlife. He is usually depicted with a head of a dog and a human body. One of his symbols is a fetish and a flail. Next, we have Horus. Horus is the god of kingship and the sky. Though there are many different forms of Horus throughout Egyptian culture, he is often depicted as a falcon, or like Anubis, his body is human and his head is a falcon. One of his symbols is the Eye of Horus. Coming up on number 3, we have Khonsu. He is a moon god and he is a god of light. One of his symbols is the moon disk. Fourth, we have Osiris. Osiris is the god of the afterlife, rebirth, and the underworld. One of his symbols is the crooked flail. Second to last, we have Ra. Ra is the god of the sun. He is almost twins with Horus, since his body is human and his head is a falcon. The difference is he has a sun disk on top of his head. One of his symbols is a sun disk. Last on our list of Egyptian gods is Set. He is the god of chaos, the desert, storms, disorder, violence, and foreigners. He is Anubis' father, so he also has the head of a dog and the body of a human. One of his symbols is the specter. Like I said earlier in this video, this is just the most common pantheons and some of the gods from those pantheons. You can also follow the gods from Hindu, Japanese, Latin America, or Native American pantheons. Just remember to do your research and pick a pantheon that you are interested in. You can always change your mind if it turns out that that pantheon isn't for you. With that all said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did like this video, join the path and subscribe. Also, please drop a like so I know how I am doing. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you all in my next video.